Yes, անգլերեն խոսելու, որտեղ հյուրեր ունենք. I'll do in English. Since this moment, we're going to do everything in English. Everyone understands English, right? We don't have anyone. Okay, very well. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for finding a time to attend our today's meeting, which is dedicated to the cancer research opportunities for Armenia. And this is organized within the framework of the Armenians Forward Together Forum. This is the second year the forum is running, and this year we through the Institute or Oncology Research Institute, we proposed to put a separate symposium on cancer research because we thought it's very important, and we're happy that the organizers and chairman of the forum supported our idea. So I'd like everyone to be active, to be maximally active, and express the ideas what you have, because it's really very important for us, not only this moment, but also for the future, to plan accordingly what we can do in the future. I'll do the first presentation and then we'll move forward accordingly. Okay, so what's this? Glasses, yeah. So yeah, it's a little bit funny, but kind of just to start from something, we need to make a story about it. So glasses is usually, these are associated, I mean, in the past with science. I'm not sure how valid it is, but many people, I mean, were associated scientists, engineers with having glasses, and or being a biologist, right? And within last 30 years, during the Soviet period, in Armenia, we had a very strong science, and the Soviet Union also had a strong, scientific background. I'm not sure how successful it was, but it was in some part, and we had a scientific kind of solid background, and we had scientific institutions, and I believe that the development of the country strongly correlates with what kind of science we have. But later on, during the last 30 years, during the developing period, I'm not sure how organic it was, and what was the reason, but the scientist role, or the name of scientist, was associated with a failure, mainly. So people were associating, telling, okay, you are a scientist, and they consider, oh, so it means you are failed in the life, right? So, and yeah, that was the reality, and still in some of the parts. So usually people like parliamentarians, business guy with a huge bellies. This was the kind of perception of people with the success. But the world is changing, and I'm happy that these stereotypes also are changing. And if you start Googling, like I was thinking yesterday when I was Googling that if I put a scientist in Armenian language, I mean, there will not be much fun about it, like in terms of having nice photos, but it was, I think it was good, and I was happily surprised that mostly it was correlated with the same name when I put it in English. So the perceptions are changing, and it's good. And now when, for example, recently the Nobel Prize winner Artem Pataputyan was in Armenia, the auditorium was full, and I was really happily surprised for that. So moving forward, yeah, and during these 30 years, these glasses really were not very popular. So, but I think it's kind of how it's called, reviving, getting a momentum, and yeah, it's my topic, the cancer research challenges in Armenia, and I'll talk also briefly about the Immuno-Oncology Research Institute. The science is about numbers, first of all, right? So to make a statement, we need data. We need numbers, and for that numbers, I just made a kind of a map, and I didn't know that Excel has this feature, but it apparently does. So you put the numbers, it makes a map for you. So you put the countries, and it's the Excel feature. So you can also look for that. So what it shows here? It's the rate of I search for the number of clinical trials registered in clinicaltrials.gov for every country, and you see here the numbers. It's rate per million. So we see that developed countries mostly, I mean, they have very high. Let me show which is the pointer. Okay, developed countries have very high number of clinical trials per million population, and it's just recent. I did this calculation in June. The more the countries, I mean, get down in the development score, the number of clinical trials is decreasing. So we have a really disparity, a huge disparity in terms of clinical trials. But what did clinical trials mean? It's first of all access to drugs, access to the life-saving medication. And I mean, it doesn't make sense if the drug is there and it's not available to people. I mean, what's useful from this drug? And you see here, it's like in the United States, it's 466 per 9. And interestingly, I showed also during the French-Armenian Symposium, Mary is here, and these slides. And interestingly, I was like surprised when I saw that it has the same rate, exactly the same rate in France, 466 per 0.9. I mean, to my perception, understanding, I was thinking that in Germany, they were more active than in France. I mean, in Europe, they are the most active. But I mean, it's twice less than in France. And it's like the adapted through the population number. So these are the rates. These are valid numbers. And then it comes Italy after France, then Germany. Australia is quite active. We see that Argentina is not bad, 74.8. Russia is like quite less, 41.8. Armenia is 23.6. It's, I mean, if we consider truly, because our population is very small. That's why the number is like kind of, it's high. But actually, our activity rate is even low, I think, because it's 3 million. Okay, for 3 million, so the total number will be 3 times 23. So 60 trials we have in Armenia for the whole history. So it's really very low. And here you see all this disparity. Accordingly, the color of the, as more intense it becomes, more clinical trials they have. But why it is important for a country to foster the clinical research? What's the reason? I mean, okay, these are the numbers. So what? First of all, as I said, it's the availability of the drugs, availability and accessibility. So with clinical trials, you improve the availability and accessibility because, okay, there is a life-saving medication, and when it comes, usually it comes through the clinical trials, and it takes years to be in the market. And once in the market, the prices are very high. So, but within the clinical trials, usually they are getting it with the like for free, actually. Through the clinical trials, they are getting for free. If I do any mistakes, Mikhail, I'll ask you just to correct me, please. Okay. You will see, listen, Mikhail later. Mikhail is leading the largest clinical research, CRO, contract research organization in Russia. And I think in this part of the world. So he will explain this more later. And then definitely, and it's proven that the clinical trials, they improve the quality of care. Why it's so? Because when you do clinical trials, you need to have certain standards and you need to follow certain rules. So you can't do out of like blue, you say, okay, I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do this from my experience. You can't do this. If you do clinical trials, you definitely need to follow the standards. And standards are associated with the quality. Then you improve the research capacity in general, not only for the clinical trials, but in general, because you do more, I mean, your staff is more in the research, they get more knowledge, and you do also, okay, you are missing this lab, and etc. You are improving by the time. Most importantly, and for our country, I think it's critical, attract and retain talented healthcare professionals and prevent the brain drain. This is the critical point for any developing country, because we are losing the manpower, we are losing our brains, people are going outside. But when you have research, the scientists are staying in the country. And the more scientists you have, the more brain power you have. That's the reality. And these developed countries are developed because all the scientists are going to these countries. So, and of course, it sets a trend for other medical fields, the clinical research you do. For example, you do it in oncology, in cancer, we are talking about, but it have multiplier effect. So it's going forward. Then it goes to endocrinology, then it goes to cardiology, then it goes to the other fields. And also it impacts economy, of course. I mean, for every patient you enroll in a clinical trial, it's tens of thousands US dollars the hospital gets. And of course, this makes a lot of impact, both for the healthcare professionals and also for the economy. Let's talk briefly about cancer clinical research. So it's, as I mentioned, it's proven that clinical research derives the field of oncology. And it's from this paper from 2020. The participation of African countries in clinical trials is arguably the most proactive route to bring innovative cancer therapies and functional infrastructure to the continent. What it means. And this is from, again, a paper in JCO Global Oncology from 2021. What it means. So in African countries, in some of the African countries, I'll give you the example of Uganda. For example, Fred Hutch Cancer Center decided to do a project there. So they have a high number of Kaposi sarcoma. And one guy, I think his name was Corey Casper, he decided, I mean, he had research interest on this, in investigating Kaposi sarcoma. And what he did, he said, okay, let's go to Africa and let's build a research center. Because numbers are there, people are there, tissue samples from the pathology labs are there. So we need to do it there. So from the Cancer Research Center, it grew up to be a big cancer center. And it became like Uganda Cancer Center, and it changed dramatically. It was $10 million investment from Fred Hutch, but it changed the country's oncology infrastructure dramatically. And $10 million for research is really nothing. Because, like, for example, for an institution like Fred Hutch, they give something like that to associate professor to set up a lab in 2-3 years. So it's not a big deal in the research environment. And then institutional participation in clinical trials improves quality of care for all patients treated at that site. This was, when I was talking, it increases the quality level. And there is a nice review by Eduardo Casab in ASCO Post in 2014. And this guy describes how in Latin America they improved the research environment and how it affected the oncology, the whole oncology sphere in general. And from the same guy, he was like, I'm just citing what he said. It said, doctors and nurses who participate in clinical trials are more likely to adopt effective innovations into routine practice, as well as to practice cancer care more rigorously. So it means doctors and nurses who participate in clinical trials, I mean, they're more professional. They become more professional. They become more knowledgeable. They become more innovative. And this is from the other part of the world, but it's like the same. It's not that the situation is different. So what's the situation in LMIC, low middle income countries? Populations in low middle income countries is getting older. So what's the difference between LMIC and developing and developed world? In developing world, usually, like let's say in African countries, okay, sorry. So in developing countries, people, let's say in Africa, people are mostly dying from what kind of disease? Infectious disease, correct. The country gets more developed, they die mostly for non-communicable diseases, right? Cardiovascular and cancer. And cancer is one of them. And the cancer, it's well known that it's a disease of elderly. So with aging, the number of cancer cases is increasing. And as older as we get a higher chance of getting cancer. And it's true and it's proven that within the last 30 years, definitely our median age increased. I mean, median age, how it's called, life expectancy. Life expectancy increased. I think at least 10 years, it increased by 10 years. So in the past, now it's 75. In the past, it was around 60 something. So a 60-year-old guy was really considered old, like 40 years ago. But now it's, I mean, considered not old, this age. And more people adopting a westernized lifestyle in developing countries. It means with McDonald's, with all this stuff, I mean, definitely we are going to get more and more cancer. And as a result, because we are getting older and we are getting westernized lifestyle, we are sitting, we are not moving much, with all these fries and everything, the cancer burden is increasing. So we are getting more cancer cases. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that, but thank you. And patients, and patients in low middle income countries usually present with more advanced disease, meaning they don't go to doctors usually, they don't have screening programs, they don't have, I mean, we also, I mean, people are psychologically or financially are not very ready to go to the doctor. So that's why they're presenting late stage cancer. And clinical trials in cancer in general, in the past, usually clinical trials were centralized only in high income countries. But now trend is changing. And more patients in LMICs are getting into the clinical trials, and now the farm companies from LMIC started moving to the developing world. And now if you see the articles, you will see, for example, it was like from a developing country, from developed country, different places. You can look into the Lancet. There was I know hematologist may read this, and Henrik was doing a review about iron supplementation, right? And the paper was from Tanzania when they were doing IV iron, and it was published in Lancet, so the top medical journal, and it was from Tanzania, this clinical trial. But still the perception is not very good. A few days ago, I was having a conference call for about one of the drugs, and when we were discussing the opportunities, and I mentioned, okay, so they were telling for this drug we will be able to recruit the patients in the United States in like 3 years in 20 sites, from 20 sites, like let's say 20 patients. So from 20 sites in totally, in 3 years, 20 patients. It was for a common disease. 2 patients. From one side. I mean, mostly all these patients are already busy. I mean, they are already trust. Remember, it was like in 2014, there were 23 clinical trials open for AML, acute myeloid leukemia. Still, the world treats with 7+3 majority. So with one stand, but they had 23 possible treatment options in 2014. I'm sure now it may be 46 or even more. So it means in the developing countries there is a huge potential, and these people also need these drugs. So we living here, we also need this. But perception is, to be frank, and some people were talking about this also, that in developing countries they tend not to report right numbers, the quality is not that good, but not here. But he was telling me that he had a discussion, he heard a discussion from one of the companies, Western large companies, and they were telling, that's not the real truth. That's the only one side of the coin, because usually from developing countries, when you start a clinical trial, people are more cautious because it's new for them. They try to do their best. So sometimes, and the story was about Russia. They were telling that from Russia, the quality of the data was better even than from some of the hospitals from the West. So it's not that it's not that only the high-income countries can do the best clinical trials. And why clinical trials important in low middle income countries? I mentioned it, but some other points, because some tumors are found mainly in developing countries, and there is a little research about them. I mentioned Kaposi sarcoma, for example, but there is a lot more. For example, Burkitt lymphoma in Africa and elsewhere, different story. Genetic differences between populations around the world, and the results from high-income countries' populations is not always applicable to all populations. There are genetic variations, and this drug may work here. This drug may. So, for example, there is a mutation, and you give a anticoagulant and it doesn't work, and you don't know it. Maybe 10% is in the United States, 20% here, or 10% there, 1% here. The same with cancer. And of course, there are cultural and environmental differences and resource differences, definitely. About the resource differences. About the clinical trials in high-income countries or done for the welfare of high-income countries, they have little impact on practice change in LMIC. So, for example, the drugs we can read in JCO or Lancet. You read and you forget about it, because there are maybe 1,500 monoclonal antibodies, and we have 5, 10 maximum. So, what's the reason if FDA approves it and it doesn't? We don't have it here. Not only here, but in the rest of the world. And also, it has a little impact on cancer care coverage by the government in LMIC. So, because they are very costly, and no one can afford it unless you don't have a clinical trial. And these drugs, they don't investigate cost effectiveness of interventions, usually. Because, it's all covered by Medicare, it's all covered by European, these insurance companies. If it's approved. It doesn't matter how expensive it is. And what main obstacles we get? Of course, the finances, human resources. In our countries, people think, is research. Oh, research. They are going to do research on me. Am I a rabbit? Or something like this. They don't understand. People go to MD Anderson or Memorial Sloan Kettering or for care to clinical trials because this is not available. We can, for Hodgkin lymphoma, everyone can do the standard of care, right? For breast cancer as well, for colorectal cancer, all the standard care is available. But for the clinical trials, people go to the comprehensive cancer center. And there is a research environmental culture, so there is a lot of logistical and other organizational issues, but it takes time to build it. So we were talking with Mikhail, and it's good that he's here because he will not let me lie about it. He was telling that in Russia it takes 3 months to register a drug. In Armenia it was taking a year.
To start the clinical trial.
Okay, to start a clinical trial. In Armenia it was taking 1 year, right?
So can the Google and start?
1 year, right? So for,
real life practice.
yeah. So what it means? It means we are losing because farm company. How much is the price? Usually.
I mean, it's not expensive at all. In Russia, exchange rate is something like $2,000 in Russia, meaning the state
Yeah.
fee.
Is it the same for all the medication, or it depends on the price of the medication?
No, it doesn't depend on the price of it. So there is a price of the work that is done by
regulatory.
Yeah, by it's comparable in Armenia.
In which kind of trials this situation?
In Armenia, we had a case.
For FMF, yeah.
No, it was for FMF. Familiar Mediterranean. And we had this case because we had. I wanted to comment upon it later, but the thing is that we just had numerous communications, with the Ministry of Health, and it turned out that the whole problem was that they did not understand some specifics of the way new drugs are manufactured and created. And so it was about stability, and we really had to spend a lot of resources in terms of explaining that what we submit is not something, we don't try to treat Armenian people as guinea pigs, but it's just the way the drugs are manufactured in the US, in Europe, in Russia, everywhere. And finally, we got it. Now it's becoming faster and easier, but still a lot of obstacles inside.
Because officially, according to the law, it's just.
Yes, I know, but then they have.
But in the real world experience,
but they have an
it was
option of asking questions.
Yes, so it was my question.
Yeah.
So for which kind of this?
and so, but how we can change? It's only by like doing this, because of course it's new also for the ministry and for the drug regulatory agency. And I mean, if we start doing it more, definitely it's going to decrease. And once we reach like 3 months or even better 1 month, we'll be competitive. And the farm companies will bring their drugs. They don't want to keep it in the storage for 1 year and not doing a clinical trial. Huh?
I think
No, one of the obstacles. No, one of the definitely. But I mean, this is a real experience. Mikhail was trying to register a clinical trial, and it was 1 year. This is so this is really a real world experience. But of course, this is not the only problem. And this slide I showed you in the past. Also, we have this. This was the slide is from the 2 research papers we had, and it's showing that from 2016 to 2019, number of drugs officially registered from the essential drug list for pediatric cancer. Look how much decreased, from 73 to 43 or 7%. It means the farm companies are not interested to register the drug. Of course, because this market is small, but I mean, it doesn't matter for them. It's our problem. We need to solve it. But there is a good also something good about it. This is like, it shows the number of papers published in PubMed from YSMU, Yerevan State Medical University, from 1996 up to 2022. Huh? So it's just a recent one. It like within last 4 years, the number of PubMed articles almost 3 times more than within last almost 30 years. It means, yeah, it means people are more interested to do research and to publish more. So there is an increase, definite increase, and you see it's a data. And I'm sure if we look also for the other institutions, I just took YSMU, but other institutions are also growing in the numbers because the YSMU is the largest one. That's why I took, and it's our university. That's why I took it. So I'm biased on that regard. How can we move forward? First of all, we need to prioritize clinical research. It means we need to say that clinical research is important. Unless we don't say this, we are not going to move forward. We need to develop infrastructure. Okay, the regulatory, etc. We need to have data. So, for example, we are looking for data managers. And by the way, if you know anyone good, tell us who will hire. And someone, yeah, this is a job announcement also. If someone knows a good person, a responsible person, not only doctors, but who wants to do data management, we're happy to hire. Karen will train them. Yeah, we need to, yeah, develop infrastructure, develop registries, etc. Intensively work with healthcare professionals at public. Why this is important? Because if we don't work with healthcare professionals, first of all, we're going to fail it, as it was with the vaccinations. Because if the healthcare professionals are not aware about this issue, they are going to tell all the, out of mind stuff. They are going to, oh, this is, really, you're guinea pigs, you are like, they are doing some investigations on you, something like that. If we don't work with them, because usually what people do, common people, they take a phone and call a healthcare professional they know. And if this healthcare professional does not understand what the clinical trial is, they will say, oh, don't do that. You are going to have a tail, or you are going to have horns or something like that. So that's really the truth. And with vaccinations, we had this problem. And all of us, we saw that. We need to do twinning with the centers from the developed countries. So we need to learn, not invent the wheel, we need to learn. And intensively work with our diaspora. And so, and intensively work with diaspora because we have a lot of expertise outside. And a lot of people are leading the largest farm companies, Armenians. A lot of people are owners, are founders, have key positions there. So we need to work with them. And this is a short, SWOT. I showed it at 2 conferences. Just added some of them. Sorry for those people who have seen already it, but the auditorium is new. That's why I'm still presenting it. So our strengths, targets are a very relevant need. So it means we really need clinical trials. It's not something out of blue we are talking about. We have a motivated workforce and leadership, and we want to go further. It means we don't stop here. We have a collaborative environment, and we see now a lot of people from different organizations, different institutions, medical institutions, charities, and so research organizations, and it's really good. We have international collaborations. We have YSMU with all this environment, what we has with all the students. Right now we have several students, and they are very productive. For example, with Tigran, Karen, Tigran, and Samuel produced a very beautiful paper about cancer control in Armenia, and it was published in Frontiers in Oncology, which is a great journal, high-impact journal. Now Sergey works with Dr. Zorabian and Nune on lung cancer in Armenia, which is also going to be published in Journal of Thoracic Oncology, another high-impact journal. So it's really, I mean, the students are one of our driving forces. And we have NCO, we have our Hematology Center, Yeolyan Institute of Surgery, we have our association, we have other organizations, we have research organizations, French Armenian Research Organization, Mary is here right now. We have charities here. We have like charities. It's good that now the priorities are changing. We were just talking with Armenia recently, and he promised that they're gonna fund their research. There are many people. That's what I'm telling. They are, yeah, they are gonna fund the genetics. But if we do all the paperwork right, of course, with Anna just went out, so the chance decreased. Yeah, that you are gonna fund the research about genetic predisposition. Huh? And City of Small now will announce. I'm not sure if it's announced, but the first place got Nune on the. But I did. I got the I announced it right now for the second place. Still, there will be competition for improving the papers what was submitted. So it means charities are also supporting our research, and it's very good, very important. And we have experience with epidemiological studies. Most of the research published in PubMed, majority are epidemiological studies and some retrospective analysis, which is good, but we need to move forward. The weaknesses, few in the field have knowledge in research methods. But this is also improving. I know YSMU now have this research methodology classes. AUA contributes a lot for this research environment. And I could say that every year I'm getting, as a preceptor, I'm getting interns from AUA. And most of the interns who came, I asked them to stay with us and to work with us. And it was a really wonderful collaboration so far. And this is really very good. We lack comprehensive cancer centers. What it means comprehensive? For example, in Germany, the comprehensive cancer center is the one where, for example, for pediatric cancer, 90% of kids are on the clinical trial. And we don't have this. And for the solid tumors, if I'm not mistaken, it was 20%, and heme malignancies 50%. There is a definition for that. We have the opportunity, but we don't have the comprehensive cancer centers yet, according to the definition. We have a shortage of population-based cancer registry, but now Arevik is here. It's very good. They are developing this registry, and I'm sure it's going to be really a game changer, because we have seen what happens when the data comes. We collected 25 years data for pediatric cancer. It allowed us to do a lot of research, and now we are extracting everything from these medical charts and putting them in the registries, and it really changes a lot. We have lack of oncopharmacists. Hopefully, we'll have in the future, because some of the clinical pharmacologists are now graduating and they are going to go into this, that the drugs are not prepared by nurses. It's not that we don't trust them. We don't trust them a lot, but this is the job of oncopharmacists. And we have a shortage of data management tools and personnel, as I was mentioning. We don't have data managers now. And opportunities. We have surplus of medical school graduates. We have a lot of people graduating from medical school, and they don't know what to do. We have a lot of doctors in Armenia. We don't need more, I think. I mean, in that amount. But people can go into research, and there is a lot of opportunity staying in Armenia and doing research. And by the way, if doctors, currently practicing doctors, do more research, and I talked about it with our fellows many times, then there is a lot of room, because if you become a successful scientist, also in the physician scientist, then you will do clinical like 10 to 20% of your time. It means there will be a lot of room for others to come in the field. And a lot come, a lot gain, because the team will become bigger, larger, more powerful, and you'll get more and more. It's like multiplying. It's not adding, it's multiplying. And yeah, we have support from the experts in diaspora. There is an open access training and education from leading institutions worldwide. And we are kind of supporting very much these training opportunities. If our fellows, they know that they get into the programs from good, like these leading institutions, we are definitely going to support it different ways. And I'll show you, for example, the Immuno-Oncology Research Institute, which organized this today, also is supporting. And I mean, we'll definitely do more. And I'll ask also charities, and Armen is here, and Esther knows about it, is here. Yeah. City of Small already supported a lot, several people. So it's your turn now. No, but really, and threats, we lack of awareness. If we do not train the do not teach the population, we are gonna get into the trouble. Research and its publication not valued in general, but it's gonna change, I'm sure. And lack of public funding. It's also, I think, changing the and he was presenting it. And this is a great opportunity for us. So I took some of these ideas from his slides. And it's like about the real world evidence, what it means. Yeah, it means that the real world evidence, when we do clinical trials, we do ABVD, but we are not in the clinical trial, this infrastructure. We do the protocol, but we are not part of clinical trial. So it means we do not select for, so if in the clinical trial, the exclusion criteria is, let's say, don't take people with hypertension, we don't do this. We take because this person needs to take the treatment. It means we get more unbiased, more valid data. So the protocol you are doing here for colorectal cancer, definitely it's more real than within the clinical trials, because within the clinical trials, patients are very, very selected. And so, for example, he was like giving some examples. How the centers in the United States, not the centers in Europe, because they mostly do clinical trials. So we can balance, we can do the clinical trials more, but in the meantime, we report our real world data. And this is just the comparison, how you do this. It's the, like, okay, randomized clinical trials are the gold standards of research, specifically designed. These are bias minimized, but real world evidence, it's diverse and unselected. So that's what we established 2 months ago, actually. Yeah, in May, 3 months already. And what we do here, why it is good? Okay, what's the mission of the Immuno-Oncology Institute and why established? It's to advance the cancer to advance the cancer knowledge and care through breakthrough scientific research. Of course, the mission should be. Okay. Хочешь контактичка, merci. Stay platform. Okay, and then to integrate innovative immuno-oncology therapies into the clinical practice for different types of cancers, to generate and collect clinical data for the identification of new therapeutic targets, and to increase, most importantly, to increase the availability and accessibility of those discoveries for the cancer patients. Otherwise, they are meaningless. If patients do not have access to these medications, they are meaningless. To create a world-class professional environment and to attract the brightest minds in cancer field, and to train the next generation's researchers. And last but not least, to support the development of healthcare legislation of the Republic of Armenia. This is our structure. We have a board of directors, international advisory board, and this is all our, like we'll have groups and task forces. It's the adult oncology, adult hematology, pediatric oncology, hematology, project coordination and data management. Still we don't have, but we are looking for a data manager. So again, the job is announcement. And some of the things we are outsourcing. This is our growing staff and much larger team. We'll talk about team. So Samvel is the scientific director. Samvel is not in Armenia today. That's why he's not present here. Not in Armenia. So he's our scientific director, and who knows him, they can definitely prove that he's one of the brightest persons you can meet, the smartest. So Karen, again, the same about Karen. She's leading our all the projects. So actually everything what we are doing, she's trying to that everything is on place, and she's handling it very well. Dr. Voskanyan is leading our adult hematology stream, and Ruzanna is leading our pediatric oncology hematology stream, and it's growing. Yeah. Adult oncology also somebody is right now leading, but this is the staff. The team, of course, is much larger, and majority of people are here with us. And
there was a place.
Yeah, and there was a place, and we are growing. Yeah. No, every time. I mean, with every project, we will have more people and more people and more people. I'll talk, and then our people also will talk about some of the projects where the institute will support. Like we'll have a coordinator, we'll have a research project there. What we are doing, we're gonna do right now. We already submitted. Let me say, one protocol for review. It's like to do a protocol. It's like 80 pages of work, and now we submitted it for the review from the one of the farm companies, and expanded access studies. This is expanded access when the drug in the clinical trials is available, also getting available. So we get the drug and we give it to the patients, and we get the data, but also in the meantime. And one we submitted, and also we did like medical justification for several other clinical trials. One is, for example, in hematology, it's the PD-1 inhibitor with combined with hypomethylating agents for AML and high-risk MDS. The other one was the PD-1 inhibitor for the relapsed Hodgkin lymphoma and relapsed refractory solid tumors, some of them, and some more. And we do capacity building. So the research infrastructure in Armenia, registries, SOPs, I'll talk about this more to come. We do professional development. We are gonna develop courses for research nurses. So we don't have research nurses in Armenia, and we'll do courses for research nurses. So anyone has any suggestion, please let us know. we'll have funding for this, so we can definitely do it, and we'll pay for that. And we are going to do we are going to help multidisciplinary working groups. Dr. Zorabian will talk about it a little bit later, about one of the groups they are doing. But with every group you establish and unit, our help will help. So we will give a salary to a coordinator if you need a coordinator, that this working group works. If you need a registry, we'll help with the registry. But the main reason will be that, I mean, these multidisciplinary working groups work. And this become a place where we discuss all difficult cases, we get expertise from the outside, we standardize treatment protocols, and we do the research. And we are gonna do Cancer in Armenia annual report. As I mentioned, Karen, Tigran, and Samvel were doing, published the paper. It was, they did the main job, but all of us kind of tried to help. Tatul is here, he contributed on the radiotherapy part. The rest, I mean, a lot of people contributed to the paper, and it's gonna be a collaborative. And this is like, will be a continuous work. Kind of every year we are gonna do this based on what we already published. So like, this was last year, yeah, or this year? This January. So the next January we'll need to have the update, and with more data and more to come. And also right now, Karen is collecting with one of the interns, the human resources in Armenia. I was at ASCO and they were showing me the data, how do they do the oncology workforce kind of analysis they do. I think we need to take an example from them and do this way. And of course, we'll do advocacy a lot of. Like right now, I'm talking about this is also advocacy, and hopefully you'll talk also about the clinical research, that it becomes more and more popular. We did the first register. It took us a month, less than a month, yeah, to do this registration of PPDCN international registry, I think. How much it took us? 1 month, I think. It's registered already in clinicaltrials.gov. So Dr. Voskanyan is the PI of this study, and this is a rare condition, and there is no much data in the world about it. So we are going to do international registry and collect the data and have our cohort will be publishing about it, and hopefully we'll do some research in specifically we are looking for immuno-oncology drugs to work there because they had some experience with this CD1, 2, 3. Yeah, I guess it was. And but this drug also does not work much, so there is a lot of room, and these patients do not survive longer. So Dr. Voskanyan will talk about it a little bit later in details. David, in collaboration with Greg Galamkerian from the University of Michigan, he's the chair of NCCN committee. With Nune, they are working on this, as I mentioned, this to set up a multidisciplinary working group. And as I mentioned, if there is a coordinator, I told David also that if these are the groups and they would need coordinator and something on a registry on our part, we'll fund it. So the Immuno-Oncology Research Institute will fund it, and we'll make sure that it's successful in terms of that the doctors do not suffer because of logistical or organizational things. We are going to provide small research grants. This is Stella Arakelian from, sorry, it's not correct, Michigan, Edinburgh. And from Edinburgh University in UK and our Yerevan, they are going to do this health-related quality of life of people living with cancer, comorbidities in Armenia. To make it simple, like it's the polypharmacy, like people with cancer who are getting also other medications. What kind of impact it has? The proposal came, it was kind of a investigator-initiated research, and it's a small research grant which we are going to fund. And if there are similar things, you have any ideas, definitely, if it's a good idea, we will fund and we will move forward with this. So please don't hesitate. And today's symposium also is a part, and we'll do more. And we are really planning to do more and larger. And in the what we have in the pipeline, it's the developing favorable environment for the clinical trials in Armenia, to do international registries. We're going to do another international registry for malignancy-associated HLH, the international one, because this is another deadly disease, and we don't have cure, don't have good results, I would say, good outcomes globally, and there's really a large need. And we had some discussions. We had some discussions with Justin Stepping a few days ago, and we have some ideas on what we can do. But first, as a first step, we'll do HLH registry, malignancy associated. Then we are gonna do in Anna and ultra rare cancers, mostly in kids. And we're gonna collect the information globally. Right now, she's working on it, and soon we'll apply for IRB and we'll register it. And in the same way, also, Liana now is working on chemotherapy-induced thrombocytopenia. We'll see how we move forward with this, and we'll do hopefully a registry or a larger event thing. And we're going to do local registries with some of the things which are missing. Dr. Voskanyan is working with NARAS, I think, on PMF, and we'll support it. If there is a registry part, there is something like that. And we discussed to do a local lymphomas registry. If there is any idea or there is any proposal from the auditorium, you want to do something like anything, like also registries, please approach us. We'll be happy for that, and we'll support you. If you need workforce, if you need anything, like any disease, we can work together. You just have an idea, we will help you. We will work together. We'll help you to develop the synopsis, the protocol. We'll help you with the IRB, with everything, and also with the funding, that you have a dedicated time for this. And like we will also initiate this Armenian Cancer Network creation, a network which is not an official kind of organization, that just a network where we are all aware about what we are doing and we can help each other. That organizations, rather sharing what we have to give. Research infrastructure definitely in Armenia. We are going to have a cancer congress in immuno-oncology symposium and patients forum. We'll discuss it maybe later during the Armenian Oncology Congress. We'll propose maybe to have a satellite symposium, or we'll see. We'll see, but definitely we're going to do. And next year we are going to host International Society of Pediatric Oncologists Asian Forum in Armenia. So we are the host next year, and we are going to put a dedicated immuno-oncology also symposium there as well. Research fellowships. This will be for the hematologists, oncologists in adult or pediatric. We will fund them to do research. They will work as doctors, but they will dedicate some of their time to the. So if you have good projects on mind, we have some projects already on mind for what will get the fellows, but if you also have ideas, and we're going to do it continuously every year. So it's not that, oh, this year 3, like this year will be 3, it's planned next year. Hopefully the future we'll see. It will depend on the work we do. And it's going to be announced soon. So pay attention. And of course, in the pipeline, the research and more research, and of course, education. Thank you. Sorry, I'm 10 minutes more. Right now, open. That's why we didn't manage yet, but we did already the branding. So you saw the Netflix. Any questions? Comments? If not, let's move forward. Yeah. They are going to go funding, yeah, for us to fund research. And moving forward with the next speaker, it's a great pleasure for me
and I was invited to join. Could we go back? Oh, back. I don't know. It's the middle of the presentation. Yeah, very good. Thanks. So I was invited to a meeting with Ruben Vardanyan, and despite the fact that the majority of clinical research is done in the US, and as we have seen in France as well, and the majority of development is still done in the US. For many years, and this is an FDA published data, Russia was #2 contributor to the world recruitment of patients across all indications. So Russia was #2 after United States. And when I first expected that, Russian patients played such an important role,